Yeah. Think about, sometimes you might be going somewhere so remote, you know, if you're going to Peru, if you're going to Morocco, you might be going somewhere and working with people that have never met anybody from the United States. So guess what? You become the United States for that person. So what you say goes a long way. So keep that in mind. You're also, of course, yourself. You're representing yourself, so you want to put your best foot forward always. And you're representing the University of Michigan. You're going to be wearing your t-shirts, you're going to be wearing your hats, you're going to be doing, you're going to be going out, doing things. Always remember, you are representing this university. You're on a university program, and you are representing the university when you're abroad. So keep that in mind. And there you are, with your flag. Who's taking a flag with them? Okay, if you don't have your flag yet, go buy one. We're not giving those out, but flags are great. We love pictures with flags, you can see. And like I said, you're representing your country. You know, like I said, you might be the only person they've ever met from that country. They're going to be asking you about the election. You know it. So you don't want to get into any fights about politics, but they're going to want to hear about what's going on. And then lots of other things about the United States. Common ground, this was funny today. We had the China thing, the China pre-departure, and one of the teachers said, all those young Chinese people over there all watch the same TV you watch. They're all watching, what was it, Breaking Bad, what's that one with the zombies? Yeah, Walking Dead. You know, they know all that stuff. So at least it's that can be some good common ground in a lot of countries. So moving on, I want you to think carefully. You know, you're not on a vacation. You're on, you know, we like to think that this experience is actually part of your university experience, even though you're not on campus. So be aware of what you're doing when you're there, and how you act, and you know, the way you interact with people. So we have this thing, you know, emotional intelligence. You know, how are you thinking? How do you build it? You build it by thinking about it, and at least being aware of what's going on and how you're acting and how you're interacting with people around you. So be aware. Think about yourself, think about what you're doing, act carefully. Being conscientious about it. You know, if you find yourself in a difficult situation, or if you're in a relationship, you know, work relationship with somebody abroad, and it's not going the way you hoped it would, I mean, we have resources, and my colleagues are going to be talking to you about that. You can always get help from us, but also be very conscious about what you're doing and think about it and try and work through it. Think about yourself. Agency, take control. Often when we're abroad, things happen, and we think, oh no, God, that's happened to me. That thing has happened to me. Well, you're going to have to take that and deal with it and try and get beyond it and fix it, or get help from someone, but don't just kind of be frozen in this event. Make sure that you do some kind of, take some action that's going to help you get over it, get out of it, make it better, or something like that. Oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. Adaptability. You are not in the United States, you're in another country. It's their country, it's their culture. So you need to adapt. You know, they do things differently, you know, lots of things differently. They eat weird stuff. It's not wrong, it is what they do. You know, lots of things you'll find are very, very different. Be adaptable, because, you know, you're at their house, not your house. Yeah, achievement, initiative. Initiative's important. Like I said, the work situation, you might be sitting at your desk, you know, the first week and doing absolutely nothing. And you're like, why did I come all the way to fill in the blank to be sitting here doing nothing? Well, take some initiative. Go and talk to your supervisor, talk to somebody else. If you're the placement company, you can talk to those guys. You can always talk to us. You know, we can always intervene if we need to. We prefer that you work it out yourselves, because it usually goes better. But, you know, take some initiative. Don't just sit there going, oh, this sucks. You know, why am I here? Let's do something about it. And be the catalyst for change. I know you've all heard that before, but it can be a real thing. You know, what about those, you guys going to work in Peru, you know, with orphans or disabled children, or teaching English in Morocco? You have the ability to spend some really good quality time with some either adults or children that are probably having a pretty hard life. And you have, you know, an option and an opportunity to do something for them and to make one little part of their life a little bit better. So take that opportunity. Self-control. I'm going to let my colleague Rachel Reuter talk more about this, but remember, like I said, you're representing this university, you're representing yourselves, your country, everything. Make sure that your actions reflect that.
Were there 2 tables right here?
Okay, so let me just pull this up. There we go. Yeah. No, too far. Okay. So when you're there, and this kind of goes both ways. This is not just at work. This is also kind of in your living environment. You know, might be living with new people you've never met before. Actually, more than likely, everybody will be doing that. And so make sure you work on those relationships. You know, it's being conscious of other people's differences that you have to live with. Being a good friend to somebody who you might not know very well. Never assume that everybody's got everything under control, because guess what? None of us have. So somebody could be having a hard time, and if you think, oh, I really hate that person, she's so annoying because she does X, Y, and Z, she might be having a really, really hard time. And so try and be empathetic with each other, and try and reach out and be friendly to people, even if initially it's not somebody that you think you would be a friend with. What else have I got up here? So that was empathy, trustworthiness. You know, at work you want people to be able to trust you. Also in your living situation, you know, make sure that they know that you are somebody they can count on. They ask you to do something at work, make sure it gets done, or you find out how to do it, or you get help to do it. Yeah, communication, service orientation. A lot of you are doing volunteer positions. And doing some really great work with that. So as I said, you have an opportunity to do something very special for people that don't have a lot in their lives. Oops, sorry, my last line. So I put this up here because we talk a lot about culture and cultural awareness and what is that, you know. And so I've got this little, you know, kind of quote up here, that it's the operating system for a nation. Culture underlies absolutely everything that we do in, you know, every walk of our lives. So if you look at it from that point of view, hopefully you can begin to understand it, understand the differences, and maybe even try and integrate into it during your time abroad. Okay, so this is my little 10 cents worth of what I think you guys should be doing once you're abroad. Yeah, that culture thing. Like I said, accept it for what it is, try and fit in, and be humble about it. We often like to compare. It might be actually impossible not to compare what you see, hear, experience abroad, but it's not wrong, obviously. It's just different, so accept it for what it is. Enthusiasm. Hey, a lot of us in this room, I'm not American, but I feel like American. I'm actually British. But one of the traits I think of Americans is enthusiasm, and I think we should just go out there and be enthusiastic. People love to show visitors their country, and they are very proud of it, and you might not be very impressed with certain things necessarily, but I think being enthusiastic about it to your hosts, because every person in that country is your host, is an important thing to do. So I think being enthusiastic and positive is extremely important, even if you don't necessarily feel it. Be open. So when I was in China, they gave me some snake to eat. I'm like, it was fine. I wouldn't order it again. But, you know, be open. Be open to new ideas, new experiences, all safe experiences, please. You know, people, new foods, go to a new city, be open, accept it all. This is your opportunity to really kind of open your minds and see some great things, experience some great things. So let yes be your first answer and then think about it. Flexible. My boss always comes in 20 minutes late. I'm always standing outside the door. Tough. You get there on time every day. That's how it works. All my friends want to go and do this. I don't want to do that. I'd rather go here for the weekend. know you're in a group, be flexible. You'll find at the end of the day, it's going to be more helpful and more enjoyable, I think, if you are. And generous, and by generous, I don't mean handing out dollar bills on the corner. I just mean generous with your time, generous with your empathy, generous with your actions. Be somebody that they want to have back in their country, please. So, you're all going to be blogging, and let me tell you, you're off wherever you are. You're in Japan, you're in Kosovo. We're here in our office over in the LSA building, and we're reading your blogs. Kelly over here, she's going to wave again. Kelly is going to be, and myself are going to be the kind of the voice that you're writing to, if you like. We're going to be responding to your blogs, every single one of them. We're going to be noting down that you're blogging. If you don't blog, we will send you a nice little email saying, how are things going? Please blog. We love to read about what you're doing. We want to know that you're okay, and that's another reason we have you blog. We want you to check in once a week for the entire time you're there. If you find yourself really tight for time one day and you just don't have time to write this giant blog again, please just write a short blog that week and then write more the following week. Please upload gazillions of fantastic photos. If you saw the slideshow on your way in, those were all the students that were abroad last year. They sent fantastic pictures. We have a reunion, as you all know. You have the dates when you signed your contract. When you get back, when you guys will all do this again and sit with the same people and hopefully have a lot of really cool stories to share. But we also have a giant photo contest where we give away some really cool prizes. We have categories, and it's kind of, we make a big deal of it. So now you don't even have to take your camera, just take your phone. We like it when you take cameras, though, because cameras give us the quality of pictures that we can then blow up and use as posters in our office and places. So if you do have a good camera and you like to take pictures, we do appreciate that because the quality of those allows us, if you guys are on board with it, to use those pictures, for more and more things. What else on blogging? Yeah. Go into that. So the blog is public. Very important. The blog is public. Do not use any last names. Do not put any phone numbers or addresses in the blog. If you want to message somebody, you can. If you need to get hold of somebody who's on the blog but in another country and you don't know how to, you can always come to our office. Send us an email, and we can put you in touch with somebody. But don't use the blog as a kind of a way to communicate with each other. A direct way to communicate with each other. I would like it to be a means that you use to communicate with each other, to show support, to show interest, read each other's blogs, comment on each other's blogs. And I don't mean within country, I mean, extensively, widely. Take a look at the blog. It's really cool. What you're doing is cool, but what some of the other people are doing is really cool too. And it's fun to read about. So I do encourage you all to take time to just glance through the blog. You'll see some fun pictures, start reading some of these blogs, write them a little note, that kind of thing. Great. All right, I'm done for now. So I would like to introduce Brandon over here, Brandon Patterson. He is going to teach you about a really cool resource that was built, I think, just about a year and a half ago, and that he was involved in. Thanks, Brandon.
All right, thanks, Rachel. So my name is Brandon. I'm coming from the School of Social Work, and we help develop a website that helps students build resiliency. So this is a very exciting time. All of you are going to some incredible places, but know that once you do arrive, it is common experience to feel maybe a little lonely or just feel maybe out of place a little bit. And also know that, there could be some conflicts that happen because just you're different and you're going to meet others that have different opinions than you. And so this is a resource to help you cope with some of those things. It's called resilienttraveling.umish. And we're going to actually go to it and watch a video about one student who faced a difficult situation abroad. Okay, her Her name's Sarah, and she went through culture shock. So we're going to watch this. It's about 3 to 4 minutes long, and then we're going to have a little discussion in our tables, in our different groups, maybe about kind of what she experienced and what your ideas are about what maybe you'll experience when you're abroad. And then we'll come back together as a group and kind of walk through a little more of the website and talk a little more about resources and coping strategies.
My name is Sarah Lipson, and I'm a PhD student at University of Michigan. I study public health and higher education here. And a couple of years ago, I lived in the Marshall Islands. I lived there for just under a year. The Marshall Islands are like this series of really tiny, tiny little islands. They're incredibly thin. They're called atolls. An atoll is no wider than like my apartment here. Like, they're so, so small. And the night before I left, I was like lying in bed, and I'm somebody who tends to kind of picture what the next day of my life is going to be like, and thinking about the people I'll interact with or what meetings I have, and I just thought, like, I have absolutely no idea what tomorrow will be like at all. Like, I don't know what things are going to look like. I don't know a single person that I'll talk to tomorrow after I say goodbye to my parents in the airport. Like, there's nothing about this day that I could predict at all. And I suddenly just was terrified. The first maybe 4 months of being there were absolutely the hardest 4 months of my life. Everything was just so overwhelming. I didn't know anybody. It was so, so, so hot. I was so physically uncomfortable. I had lice, really, really bad lice, not like the lice that we get worried about in the United States when a first grader has one thing. I had crawling lice in my head that I could pinch and the blood would come out onto my fingers. The dogs were actually the hardest part for me. They were just vicious. They were underfed, they were abused, they were very mean animals, and it was really scary for me to be outside. Another thing that was really hard for me was that I'm from a city. I really like anonymity. I really like being able to go about my day and know that nobody's gonna even know me or recognize me. A lot of times, I absolutely did not have this. I'm stubborn, and I fought a really long time to change things that I couldn't change. I had to just accept that was gonna happen. I would be angry about it. I was uncomfortable. I'd be angry that people were following me everywhere I went. And it meant that I was just making my life harder. I was fighting against everything that I couldn't control. But after a couple of months, I started to just accept things, not focus on the things that I couldn't change. When I would feel myself thinking about it, I would just be like, there is nothing you can do about that. There's absolutely nothing you can do. But over time, I really started to have these amazing moments where I truly was having an amazing, amazing time. Those moments started to become more and more I'd have an entire day where everything was just amazing because the people there were just incredible. Every bad thing that happened had this positive ending because people would take care of me, or it meant, I was bit by a dog and it ended up turning into my host family because this woman started to take care of me and then invited me over for dinner, and then I started to know her whole family, and then I ended up living with them. I went with 30 people, 12 left before the year was over. A lot of people agonize over whether or not they'd be able to stay, and it's not as if that thought didn't cross my mind, but it crossed my mind in such an interesting way because it gave me some agency that I needed to believe I still had. I needed to think this is still a choice for me, and that was all I needed, and that my thoughts never got any further than that. But for many months I had to remind myself that it was a choice to be there because that's how hard it was. By the end of 11 and a half months, I was wishing I had many more months.
So now in your tables, kind of reflecting on that story, talk about some of these questions. So maybe what surprised you about that story, maybe some ways in which where you're going you might face similar situations and ways you might handle that. So go ahead and discuss with your table for the next 5 minutes or so. All right, let's come together again. All right, so I hope you had some good conversations at your table. I was able to overhear a few and heard some really profound things, so I thank you for participating in that, and I hope you continue to have these conversations. So just know that there are stressors abroad that will occur. Most people get sick when they're abroad, so that's a stress. Most people also have jet lag. So just support each other, especially if you're going with a group of people, but even if you're going by yourself, find ways in which you can cope with these the way that you do here, but just know that it will be a little different abroad. There are different ways to cope, and some people have poor coping skills, and these are 5 kind of metaphors or ways in which people can cope with situations. So one is like the skunk, so you just don't take good care of yourself, you're not bathing and practicing good hygiene. One is the drunk, so somebody that will deal with stress by drinking excessively. That's never good. There's the monk, or somebody that is more reclusive and likes to kind of seek shelter and find time to themselves more often than maybe they should. So know that that's maybe a poor coping choice. There's the hunk and the chunk, which are both just physical well-being, so just ensure that you're taking good care of yourselves and you're finding balance in terms of your daily life abroad. So what are some good coping strategies? So one's just to try and build a network or find people that have common interests, find ways to explore this new environment that you're in, find ways to connect with people back home, whether that's through Skype or whether that's chatting through Snapchat or Facebook or other means, but know that does help your mental health to stay connected to home as well. These are some resources available, and a lot of these are in your booklet, and then there's going to be a conversation happening and a presentation more on health and safety here. I do just want to go over just a bit more about the website before turning it over. So this was developed about a year ago, and including Sarah's stories, there's 4 others that deal with different topics. So we heard Sarah's on culture shock, but there's one on loneliness, group conflict, and personal struggles. And then each one of these videos is associated with a skill that can help you cope with that a little better. So there's being assertive in situations, being able to diffuse situations cognitively, deep breathing exercises, and each one of these has an associated video that you're able to watch and kind of learn more about. Finally, there's a resource guide here where if you are feeling, stress that maybe you can't handle necessarily, know that there are services that the university has that you can access across overseas. They have a 24/7, I think, number that can be accessed, and a lot of times you can get referred to a local mental health provider that can help you with anything that you're dealing with, and that's through your HTH health insurance, which all of you have before leaving. There's also just some other resources for stress reduction, things like free yoga that you can do in your dorm or in your hostel or wherever you're staying. There's some great mindful meditation here. There's ways to build your cultural competency and humility while abroad, so know that this is a resource for you whenever you need it. All right, now I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I am Rachel Reuter. I am the Health and Safety Advisor, the International Health and Safety Advisor for the College of LSA. My office is based within CGIS, the LSA Study Abroad office, but my role is throughout the College of LSA. So please feel free to come and meet with me if you have any questions on what I talk about, or you have any questions about health and safety before you go abroad. Please feel free to drop by the office at any time. You could make an appointment with me on our website, or anything like that. So I just want to talk a little bit about pre-departure preparation for health and safety, and then we'll talk a little about on-site safety as well. So as you all know, you all have HTH insurance. You all were required to purchase it as part of the requirements of going abroad. I know you all did an online orientation, so I won't harp on this too much, but I do just really want to emphasize how great this insurance is and how important it is that you understand how to use it and that you do use it if you need it. As Brandon mentioned, if you do need mental health resources or physical health, you can use this insurance at any medical provider anywhere in the world. So it doesn't have to be, for those of you who know how insurance works, you don't have to go to an in-network provider, out-of-network provider. You can go anywhere. You walk in, if it is an HTH in-network provider, you show them your card and everything is taken care of. You don't have to pay for anything. If it isn't an HTH provider, that's fine. You may have to pay for it out of pocket, but you just need to file a reimbursement and you will get reimbursed at 100% of the cost. I have worked at CJIS for almost 2 years. I have seen about somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 claims, and I have never seen one denied. So you will be reimbursed 100% of the cost. You don't need to be worried about having to pay anything back. Everything is covered. The only exclusions are preventative medicine and dental emergencies. So you're covered from anything from the common cold to a broken leg to having to have emergency surgery for a stroke or something like that. It is really, really phenomenal insurance. It covers you with an English-speaking physician, so for those of you who are going to places where they don't speak English, you're definitely going to want to have coverage with someone who speaks English. That's definitely very helpful. It is only $1.10 a day, so those of you who are doing additional travel, I strongly encourage you, of course, you're only required to purchase it for the length of your internship, but I would strongly encourage you to purchase it for the additional time. And then finally, it's also important to know that it covers you for the unlikely event that there would be some sort of natural disaster or a political scenario that would require you to be evacuated from the country. It does cover you at 100% to be evacuated and brought back to the United States. So while that is unlikely, the university has done this twice, so we are familiar with it. We've done it twice in Cairo, so know that we know what we're doing, but of course, highly unlikely. So the coverage dates, you all bought the insurance for the days that you need it. If you do need to extend it, you can do that. You can go back to the same link where you bought it originally and just purchase additional insurance. I already mentioned the policy exclusions. There is an app for the insurance. It's called M-Passport. If you're interested in downloading it, they make it for iPhone, Android. And then as I mentioned, you can purchase additional insurance. So how do you use it? You can go to hthstudents.com. You can create a username, a login. It's on your HTH card. The printout that you got tells you how to create the login. But basically you go in and you can put in the city where you're going. It will tell you all the HTH providers that are within 25 miles, within 100 miles. But again, you don't have to go to one of those providers. It just means that you may have to pay out of pocket. And as many of you know, healthcare around the world is not nearly as expensive as it is here in the United States. In most places, you will be able to pay out of pocket for not nearly as expensive as you will here. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about bringing medications abroad. The story on the left here is a story that is a real story. It happened last year in Japan. It is about a young woman who was living in South Korea. She moved to Japan. She had a diagnosis of ADHD. She had her very legal prescription for Adderall here in the United States. When she moved to Japan, she had all of her belongings shipped to her. One day, right after she moved to Japan, she was sitting in a restaurant with all of her friends. The Japanese police showed up, they arrested her, and she spent 28 days in a Japanese prison. It didn't matter that she had a prescription for Adderall here in the United States. Adderall is illegal in Japan. It doesn't matter that she had the prescription. So it's really important that you do the research before you go abroad if you're taking a prescription medication and make sure that it's legal in the country that you're going to. Generally speaking, Japan and China have some of the more restrictive laws on medications. Most countries aren't this restrictive, but it is important if you are taking a medication that you do the research and make sure that it is legal. There is no big database, so if you're having trouble, feel free to reach out to me. not an expert on medication laws, but I can certainly try to put you in the right direction. Generally speaking, I always recommend it's a good idea to carry a letter from your doctor with just saying, this is Abby, she takes this medication, this is why she takes it, this is how much she takes, and this is, most importantly, this is what would happen if she stopped taking it. So that if you do have any troubles with customs or with the police, they're less likely to throw out the medication or try to confiscate the medication from you if you have written, this student will have debilitating headaches if they stop taking the medication. So again, not a requirement, it's just a recommendation. I always recommend carrying all your prescriptions and over-the-counter medication in their original container with prescription label on it. If you're only going for 3 weeks, don't bring 6 months of the medication. They're going to wonder why. It's going to look like you're trying to sell it, things like that. And as a general rule, just for future travel advice, whenever I ask students who are going abroad for a really long time how they're going to get their medication refills figured out while they're overseas, like 70% of students tell me they're going to have their mom or dad mail it to them. That's illegal in like 90% of the world, so please don't do that. Okay. If you have questions about how to deal with that, please send me an email. I'm happy to help you figure it out. But whatever you do not have medicine mailed to you. Okay. So, how many of you are, besides your internship, how many of you guys are thinking about doing weekend travel or travel before or travel after? So virtually all of you. Okay. So, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that you put that additional travel into mCompass as a side trip or as a side trip. As you know, lots of crazy stuff's been happening in the world in the past year. Whenever something crazy happens, the very first thing I do, I carry an emergency phone 24/7, 365. Whenever something happens, the very first thing that I do is I go into that travel registry and I see who is in this city, what are they doing, and how can I reach them. So if you're doing your internship in Paris and something crazy happens in Barcelona, and I think you're in Paris, I'm not going to reach out to you. But if you put in the registry that you're going to Barcelona for the weekend, I'll reach out to you and make sure that you're okay. So please make sure, even if you're just going for the weekend, even if you're just going for the evening, like you're going to go spend the night there, please put all that additional travel into the registry, because that is the very first thing that I do. And this goes for all your future travel at Michigan. It doesn't matter if you're on LSA internships, or honestly, if you're on spring break in Mexico on a beach drinking. It doesn't matter. We want to help you. If there is an event in the world, we want to make sure that we're there to help. So please, please, please put that travel into mCompass. Okay. And then travel warning and restrictions. This doesn't affect the vast majority of you in this room, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. But U of M does have its own list of warnings and restrictions. For this room, this really is only going to affect the students going to India and Ecuador. Most of you likely already know if you need to file a safety plan. So if you have more questions about this, I'm going to hang out for a little bit afterwards. You can come talk to me about it. But likely, if you need to fill out a safety plan, you already know about it. Okay, so on-site safety. As a general rule, I know that you guys are all going abroad. You have causes and things that you're all very passionate about. But as a general rule, I always encourage students to stay away from protests and demonstrations. This is not the United States. You do not have the support system that you have here in the U.S. And things can take turns very quickly. So if you see a protest, you see a demonstration, walk the other way. If that means you can't make it to your internship that day, I'd rather have you stay home and have to take a sick day or have to call in and say you can't make it. But please stay away from protests and demonstrations. They can turn violent in a heartbeat, and it's just not worth putting yourself at risk. Cell phones, I don't believe it's a requirement of the program to have a cell phone. It's not, but I would strongly recommend getting one or at least having your U.S. cell phone with you. Even if you're not planning on investing in some sort of international service, bring your U.S. cell phone with you. A lot of times when something does happen, the easiest way for me to get a hold of you is I have WhatsApp and Viber and all those international texting things on my emergency phone. I will text your U.S. cell phone number and see if I can get a hold of you that way, because of course those things work on Wi-Fi and all of that. So worst case scenario, those are good ways to get a hold of you. And also in the event of an emergency, trust me, if you can turn your phone off airplane mode and spend $6 a minute to make an emergency phone call, you're not going to care if it costs you $6 a minute. So it's worth bringing your US cell phone, even if you're not planning on using it. Keeping in contact. Of course, you all have blogs, but please do keep in touch with your parents and your family back home. Not every day, not every hour, not asking you to do that. But you're over there having the time of your lives, and of course, they're back here worried about you. Know that if they call the university, if they call Rachel, if they call our office, if they call anybody here, we can't tell them anything about you. In fact, if they call me, all I can say is, Abby is a student at the University of Michigan. And when they're worried about you, that's going to infuriate them. Let me tell you firsthand. I've had many of these conversations. So please keep in touch with them. Please let them know what's going on. Tell them you're safe. Tell them they can follow your blog so they know you're still alive and things are going well. But, you know, have a regular contact. Maybe it's you're going to call them every Sunday, or you're going to send them an email every Sunday, or something like that. But keep in touch with them, keep in touch with Rachel, keep in touch with the International Internships Program. But make sure you're keeping in touch with someone. Money, just as a general rule, make sure if you do for some reason need to be carrying around a large amount of money, don't keep it. If you have like 500 euros, don't keep 500 euros in one pocket. You know, keep 200 euros one pocket here, 50 euros here. That way, if you do for some reason get mugged, you can give up 50 euros and you're not giving up all 500 euros at once. And then I strongly encourage you to enroll in STEP, which is the State Department enrollment program. I put the link up there, but basically it's just another way to get in touch. It tells the local embassy or consulate that you are in the area, that you're going to be in that country for, I don't know what's that. Okay. No. This really likes the alarm. Well, anyway, it's free. It basically tells the U.S. embassy or consulate that you are in the area, and if something crazy does happen, they will also reach out to you and make sure you're safe. Of course, the university will be doing that too, but they're a lot closer to you than I am, so it's just another good recommendation. Transportation, I can't tell you in every single country whether or not public transportation is a safe and good idea. Of course, this varies around the world. If you have specific questions about the country you're going to, again, please feel free to come and meet with me. I'm happy to talk it over with you. Same goes with taxis, but as taxis as a general rule go, it's always a better idea to call a taxi rather than hail one on the street. If you're hailing one on the street, there's no record of that. It could be a fake cab. You're not knowing if necessarily if that is someone who's just being an imposter. If you call a cab or if you use a cab stand or something like that, there is someone, someone has called that cab. There is a record of that on file somewhere. And I cannot emphasize enough how much you should not drive while you are abroad. The driving abroad for Americans is the #1 cause of death of Americans while abroad, by almost double the second cause of death. So last year, 2,000 Americans were killed abroad by homicide. 4,000 Americans were killed by traffic accidents. So please, 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 please do not drive while you're abroad. The only University of Michigan student who has ever died while studying abroad was killed while being driven by another student. So please, please, please do not drive while you're abroad. Local contacts. Of course, you all are going to have local contacts. When you get there, when you establish your relationship with your boss, with your internship coordinator, ask them if they're comfortable with you. If you get yourself into an emergency, are they comfortable with you calling them and asking for help in an emergency in the middle of the night? Is that something that you can do? Ask if these are in the event that you're stranded. Can you call them and ask for a ride? Is this a comfortable relationship that you have with them? If you're having trouble with your housing, please don't feel like you're stuck there and you have to stay or you can't complete your internship. Please reach out to Rachel or reach out to the internship program or reach out to me. You're not stuck there. You're not stuck at your internship. If it is not a safe place for you to be in, that doesn't mean that you have to come home and you're going to fail. You're not going to complete the internship and you're not going to get credit. Those are not your only choices. We will help you figure something out, so please get in touch with us. Again, good idea to research appropriate dress where you're going. Every country is different. I'm happy to meet with you individually if you have questions about that, but please do that research before you go. And finally, swimming. There's just been an uptick in deaths of students while abroad of swimming in recent years, so please be careful. Remember that ocean tides are not Lake Michigan tides, so if you're going to go swimming, you may be a strong swimmer, but please be aware of currents and things like that. Just because the locals are swimming does not mean that you are strong enough to be out there and swimming. Okay, sexual harassment. I don't want to dwell on this. It happens. It happens here in the United States. It happens abroad. It happens everywhere. It's likely to happen to almost every single person in this room at some point, and that includes both the males and the females in this room. What can you do about it? Avoid traveling alone at night. There are certain countries where you probably shouldn't be traveling alone at night, and those countries, we can talk more in depth about that. It's always a good idea to learn some basic phrases in the local language. So if you're not fluent in the language that of the country you're going to, learn some basic phrases like no, stop, help, can you please help me? How do I get to? Things like that. Generally speaking, some countries it's helpful if women wear a ring on their left hand. Men often will leave women alone if they think they're married. So it's just a suggestion. And I have a friend who just recently returned from traveling around the world. She spent 8 months traveling around the world. She said the absolute best thing that she bought before she left was a $2 rubber doorstop. So when I travel, I always put my suitcase in front of my hotel door because I'm paranoid. But of course, if someone's trying to break in, all it's really going to do is make like 3 seconds of noise, and then they're going to break in, and I'm not going to really do much about it. The rubber doorstop is not only going to make a bunch of noise, but it's also going to prevent them from getting in. The average attacker not only wants to get in, but they also want to do it very, very quietly and not attract attention. That rubber doorstop is going to make a lot of noise, and they're also not going to be able to get in. And they are going to move on and go on to the next place. So, just a suggestion, but she said it was the absolute best thing, and I have since purchased one, and I feel a lot safer than I did with my suitcase in front of my hotel room door. So, just a suggestion. Quickly on pickpockets and thieves. Again, this is a really common thing around the world. Often happens at train stations, very busy places, in places like Japan and China and India, where it is just very popular. It can happen anywhere. They'll often distract you by asking you the time. While you're bending over, they'll be reaching into your backpack. While you're on the train, if your backpack's on your back, they'll be going through your backpack, things like that. So just be aware, be alert. You can buy little locks for your backpack, zippers, so they can't go through your backpack. I at least always do that on the big part of my backpack where I keep my laptop or where I keep passport, money, important documents, things like that. If you're on a train, it's always a good idea to stand with your back against the wall and your bag on your front so that no one can be going, you don't know who's behind you. That's also a good way to prevent against sexual assault and harassment as well. But the number one thing, I cannot stress this enough, the number one thing, if you are getting mugged or you are getting pickpocketed, if someone's doing that, do not fight back. I don't care what they are trying to steal. If it is from your notebook to your phone to your MacBook, do not fight back. Let them have whatever it is that they want. Let them have it. Give us a call. We will help you replace whatever it is, but it is not worth your life. And I have a very quick story from a peer institution of ours that happened last summer, 2 summers ago. There was a big football player walking through a park in Spain. He was on his way to turn in his very last study abroad paper ever. He was so excited. And this little Spanish guy, like 5'2", came up to him and he was like, "Give me your backpack." The football player was like, "Okay." And so he gives him the backpack. And then as he walks away, he realized that that was his only copy of that paper. And so he turns around without thinking. He runs up to the Spanish guy and he grabs his backpack and he goes, "Wait." And the little Spanish guy turns around and he stabs him in the chest 12 times. So, you never know if someone has a weapon. I'm not trying to terrify you, I'm really not, but I'm also a realist and these things happen. And so I just want you to be aware that if something like that happens, please just don't fight back. Give it to them, walk away, call the police, call Rachel, call me, call the university. I will help you replace whatever it is that's gotten stolen. Just don't fight back. Okay? Alright, very, very quickly, I promise I have like 5 minutes left. I just wanted to talk a little bit about local laws. We're gonna play a little game quickly here. I'm gonna tell you the crime. You're gonna guess what country it is. It's a fun game. Okay. Possession of pepper spray. Where do you guys think this is illegal? Anybody? Come on. Rachel?
UK.
UK? Anywhere else?
Anywhere in Europe.
That's a pretty good guess. Alright. UK, Ireland, Belgium, Denmark, Greece, Netherlands, Norway, and many, many more. What is the punishment? Deportation and up to 90 days in jail. Alright. That was a beginning one. Okay, crime. Wearing a yellow t-shirt. Particularly with this one slogan, but really just wearing a yellow t-shirt. Where would that be illegal? Anybody? Nobody? Alright, it's illegal in Malaysia. Does anyone know what the punishment is? Fine up to $5,000 and 60 days in prison. Why? Right now, yellow is the color of the opposition party. They're having a big political uprising. Now, it is particularly yellow with that slogan, but right now they're just pretty much arresting anybody wearing yellow. So you, that gentleman right back there in the t-shirt, likely would just be arrested for wearing yellow. You over there as well. Just be arrested. Finally, I've got one more for you. Possession of any illegal drugs. Any illegal drugs, including marijuana. Where? Lots of countries, but anyone? Japan is a good one. Particularly, I'm talking about China. Punishment, wide variation, but... And again, real life story. A South African woman was just executed last year for smuggling in drugs. So the point of this is please do some research on the local laws in the country you're going to. This is real stuff. This happens. Just because you're an American citizen does not mean you're exempt from the local laws of the country you're going to. Finally, what happens if there is an emergency? Please call 911 or the local 911 equivalent. Rachel has given you a lovely, lovely list on the very last page of your little handout. Thank you for that. Call HTH. And then you can also call the university. We have a 24/7, 365 emergency phone. I have a 24/7, 365 emergency phone. They will put you in touch with me, and I will be able to help you. You can also fill out an incident report if it's not an emergency, but you might need some assistance in filling out like paperwork or things like that. You can fill out an incident report form on the CGIS website. It's not actually there yet, but it will be there in the next week, I promise. You can fill it out, and I will get in touch with you, and I can provide you with more information. There's this emergency contact card. You can get it off on Compass. You can print it out, take it with you. It's got all those emergency numbers on it. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to make a question.
Thanks so much, Rachel. We're getting to pizza really quickly. But I do want to encourage everybody to take their handbook with them abroad because it's got these emergency numbers in it. It was very thoughtfully put together by Amanda Harvey, who's probably in the room, and Kelly over there, who you've already met. So please do take this when you go abroad. One thing I wanted to mention, it's a great idea to take a photocopy of your passport and to leave one at home and take one with you and always have it separate from your passport. That way, if for some reason you lose or have stolen your passport, it's much easier when you go to the embassy to say, oh look, my passport looks just like this, rather than saying, hi, I'm an American, I promise. So keep that in mind, make sure you do that before you leave. What else? So we are going to break, I just want to say one thing about visas and about being in the country legally. Please make sure that you are in the countries you are going to legally when you enter the country. So if you have any questions about that, please, you know, you want to double check something before you go, you know, am I working, am I volunteering, am I a tourist, whatever it might be, do check that with us before you go. We don't want anybody turned around at the airport. Did you want to say something?
So subtle, aren't I? There are 3 students that you can come talk to me after lunch. I'm not going to make you like miss your lunch, but please, after you have lunch, I really need to speak with you. Those students are Franklin Bromberg, Aaliyah Al-Bonajim, and Maureen Barjol. I need to speak with you just real quick after you have lunch. Thank you.
Okay, and so now to some guests that we have really quickly from IES Abroad. Here they are. They have a quick announcement. It'll be super brief. But we welcome IES. They are one of our very favorite placement companies, and they got a little surprise.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Comiskey. You may have been in touch with me. I advise for the IES Dublin Summer Internship Program. I also have my colleague Asia who advises for several of the other programs. We did have a recent raffle that I'll let Asia talk a little bit about because one of the Michigan students of everyone in the country actually won that raffle. So we thought now would be a good opportunity to present that to the recipient.
Thank you, Melissa. So as she mentioned, we had a raffle, particularly for our London internship cohort. They have a very complicated, terrible visa to deal with, and it's still ongoing, and I know the process is really annoying, but to try to help move the process along, we had a raffle across the country with all of our London participants, and Sinead Cox won our raffle, so I think she's right here. Come get your prize! She won a Microsoft Surface Pro 4 and cover. I promise we're not spokespeople for Microsoft.
In addition to the raffle, we were able to grant quite a few Michigan students some IES grants and scholarships. So we thought now would just be a good time to kind of acknowledge those students for your hard work in applying and recognize you for being selected for the scholarships. Natalie Steers, if you want to stand, she's headed to our Dublin program. Natalie Drobny, also headed to Dublin. Elizabeth Kapolka? No? Headed to London. Robert Bracci, headed to Rome. Jonathan Bracci, also headed to Rome. And Shantanique Brantley. No? Okay. So those were the award recipients. Just want to give them a round of applause. Congratulations. And we hope that you enjoyed the trip, and thank you again for applying for the scholarships.
Yay, excited.
So everybody leaves the winner today though, because we got some gifts for you guys on the way out. So now we're gonna have pizza. Some lovely people are waiting outside these doors who were abroad last year in your countries, and they're gonna come and sit at your tables and have pizza with you, and you know, you can ask them all those questions. I apologize to places like Cambodia and even Italy, because they're our first time that we were in those countries, so we didn't have anybody there last year. But everybody else should have somebody hopefully at their table. So you get a fabulous string backpack, which we want you to wear proudly everywhere you go. Everybody gets a string backpack. And then we've got some new swag this year. We've got these little fancy travel plug. Everybody needs one of these. I'm going to demonstrate because everyone's like, oh, how does it work? So you do this, and it's got these inside, and then it's got the USB port, and then it's got your other little kind of connector thing right here. So it's either one of those, or this auxiliary battery pack, like if you've got an overnight bus trip or train trip or something, and you need a little extra juice, you can charge this thing up and take that with you. So on the way out, after pizza, you can pick up a bag and this or this, okay? And that's it. Here's the team of people that's been helping you put this thing together, give you scholarships. Elizabeth Pariano's over there. She's one of the money ladies, if you've got an LSA scholarship. You pretty much have met everybody else, I think, at this point. So there we are. Sorry we ran over on this part. Hopefully you can enjoy the rest of the time. Once you're done talking, I'd like you to hang around for 20, 30 minutes at least. You're free to leave as you feel like it and pick up your gifts on the way out. Thanks so much.